And it's not like I would turn around and go, Mr. Lilly, you didn't teach him that? I know he taught you that. I've known him forever, since 1986. Been friends ever since. So he asked me to go through short 3. And it's actually the first one of the number forms. Originally, it was the first one. Turn me on.
There you go.
Hey, I'll try not to destroy this process. It's the first one of the number forms, and originally it was the first one that had the salutation on it. And a lot of people in these following generations, they learned how to do short 1 from here to here, do the salute, come back, redo the salute. A lot of wasted motion, in my opinion. When they started to do that, way back in the 80s, I asked why. They said, well, it gives the beginners more motion. So when they go out to compete, this is more motion. And, well, I don't know. But my thinking, if you've read my books, is that the beginner forms, the 1s and the 2s, start from here, close up, put your hands in the low point of origin. The higher form, well, actually they come up from here, and you start from the high point of origin, then a walking salutation, a long salutation, it starts with the hands in the low point of origin. So you're indexing that. If you do it the other way, where you do this, salute, you kind of lose it. So when you analyze, you go, well, there's a reason for all this being done the way that it's done. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about the reasoning behind things, which will be part of what we do in today's class. Anyway, short 3 is the first one of the number forms, first one with the long salutation, and then goes off into the self-defense techniques against grabs. So you got dead, semi-live, and live. Short 3 is the dead attack form. Long 3 is the semi-live, and 4 and above are the live attacks. If you're not familiar with the terminology, dead means grabs, semi-live refers to pushes, live refers to punches, kicks, weapons, and so on. You can argue with the terminology. Like, well, a push isn't really semi-live because a push is a heel palm, really, and that's a live attack. But I would refer you to the fact that Ed Parker named things the way he saw that. So if he said it was like that, that's the way it is. It's okay for you to reclassify. I have taken those terms and reclassified them. I use them in reference to the 2-man attacks, because I think there are 2-man attacks that are dead, where they both grab you. Semi-live, where one's grabbing and one is coming with a live attack, or an approach, and then others that are live. So I just put them in a different context, but I like dead, semi-live, and live. But you do need to understand why he did that and how he built the system. If you can get into his head a little bit, you can understand why you're doing what you're doing. That's the reason for me going and writing these books. I didn't want you to just know about what he taught, but I wanted you to understand what he was thinking and what he was like as a person, because that affects what he taught us. And what we teach you, and you will teach the next group of people. Okay. That sound reasonable to you? Yes, sir. How many of you do the left side from short 3?
Very poorly.
Went worst.
Okay. So we're going to do left side.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
They should have all put their hands up there, but, you know. We have versions of it.
I had a student with a big school in Atlanta, Georgia, and when he would ask a question, if he saw this, he wasn't buying it. He said, stick that hand in the air. Okay, have some confidence. Yes. But we'll do the left side, the off side, and just to get you familiar with it, just because I need some laughs. That's good. You go from the attention stance. The first technique is called destructive twins. You step in, bang. Step with your left, inward, outward, poke, and punch. Okay, again. Step with your left, double punch. Okay.
All right.
Now, left foot. That's the one on this side over here when you started. I think I told you the story about the guys in Philadelphia. I was teaching in Philadelphia years ago. You know, the left side, side that makes an L is the left side. Somebody in the back says, if you turn it around, they both make L's. I never went back. But,
Isn't that the
as
state that
when I was
wears
in
snowballs
school,
at
I
Santa
had a
Claus?
pair of socks. One had an L, one had an R, and I taped them up on the mirrors. So that people could refer, because not everybody can tell their right from their left very well. And there are people that are, the majority of people are right-handed. 13% of the population is left-handed. You get even less that are ambidextrous. Okay? And there's always an opposite reverse for every move, concept, principle, and definition. So if you've got right-handed people, left-handed people, ambidextrous people, you have a very small percentage of people that can't do anything with either hand. They're very clumsy. Okay? There are people out there, there are not very many of them. And I brought that up, and then one of my black belts up in South Carolina is a retired Air Force major, taught the squadron officer schools as well. What do you call it? That with their feet.
So with that terminology where you said there's an opposite and reverse for every movement that we do, does that include just side A of short three?
The opposite would be doing the left side.
Correct.
Reverse would be starting it from the head and running forward.
Okay.
Okay.
But as far as motion in there, like when we start off with short three, we come off, you have this outward before you go to the eye strike. You pick up the opposite side of that on
That's
twirling
opposite
wings.
side.
All right, so with that in mind, does this form do that throughout on side A?
Does it do the opposite side?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
As you see. Step forward, sock them, inward, outward, poke, and punch. Slide back to your cat, do your between forefinger, between flicks, step out, crashing wings, elbow and hammer. Okay, now take your left foot, pull it in as you stack your hands, step back with your left, turn and roll. So let's go back. Got some quizzical looks. Some of you might want to move forward. There's room up here. So, related to your question. Well, you know, opposite and reversal. Why even do the left side of the forms? When you learn how to do short form 1, and if you did the original post-1970 Parker curriculum, you learn how to do the left side of short 1, the left side of long 1, and the left side of short 3. So you have these left-sided forms. And then there's an argument, like Temple people always argue about everything. And it's, well, you know, you get the left side mechanics if you do the second half of long 1, but you don't really. So he had you do the left side of these forms. Why do you think he had you do that? He's not really attack force, but you got the right idea.
Think this your weak side?
If you're left-handed, that's not true, but I'm with you on that. Makes you work the weak side. But it's not just the weak side physically. Okay, most of you are instructors. So when you have a student, you say, now we're gonna do a left side of short form 1, what's the reaction you typically get?
Oh.
Sure. Okay? It's designed to make you think and to develop that lazy brain. Okay? It's forced. It's good for coordination, but it's really a mental discipline drill. Because the mechanics, yeah, they're pretty close. There's a couple little components here and there that don't match up. Which is why if you're doing the second half of long 1, it doesn't really match the left side of short 1. So there's hammers versus thrusts and so on. But the left sides are here just to make your brain work. That's really what it's about. And the odd part about our system is that we do everything ambidextrously. And a lot of systems don't necessarily do that. They might do something on the right by stepping forward, they do it on the left side by stepping back to recreate the position. So it's not truly the other side. Step up and punch, step off and move outward, poke, punch. Cat stance, drop, punch, extra hand elbow hammer, left foot comes in, slide in. And you take your right foot, step up toward this front corner as you stack your hands on your right side. Over the top, you do circling wing, both, elbow, reverse bow, and hammer. Okay, back to beginning. Nobody's crying yet, that's a good thing. It's the forward and punch. Okay. When we do this configuration here, you got a name for this?
Call it
U
punch.
punch, C punch.
U punch.
C punch. Some people call it a horseshoe punch. Okay. Call it whatever you want, it's not on the list anywhere. Step up and then outward. This is right out of long one with your other foot forward. In long one, it's done with the front hand, and this one, it's done with the back hand. That's worth the price of admission right there. So you step in, inward, outward, open, and punch. Back to that. This is saying, okay, you know how to do crashing wings on face technique, let's fill the movement. Let's add something as if we had a second opponent, one in the front, one in the back. So let's do this and drop. Make a V-step, turn, right foot goes up into the corner, your right hand, your hands go on your right hip, move around with your upper over the elbow, poke him in the eyes, turn with your upper elbow, reverse bow, hammer fist. So your right hand should be up in a high check position. You pivot to neutral, and pin. Step through your crossing channel with your right hand. Elbow, elbow, big circle, elbow. All right, back to the bottom. There's a bunch of questions that arise with this form, or should arise. When you're a student, it seems to me that the teacher says, we'll do this, and you do it, and you don't think too much about it. Why not? Why am I doing this? The Tai Chi teacher said you should practice with the mind of a child. And Tai Chi, that's a principle that permeates the system. Childlike. Kids don't have a lot of preconceptions like adults do. And there's a tendency to get from that loose little kid to be kind of a stiff adult. But kids, why? So when you do these techniques, why? Why am I doing this? So there's differences in them from the standard application technique to what's done in the formal. There's always a reason. There's always a reason. If somebody said, Ed Parker put that in just because he liked it. No. He had stuff that he liked, but that's not the reason why he put it in the form. There's a specific reason for it being done. So you step up and hit, inward, outward.
Knock my water, boy.
Punch. Cat stand. What do you know about this? You can do this a lot of different ways.
Lift the glasses.
The most common one is to lift the glasses and stick the thumbs in the eyes. If you want to get somebody's glasses out of the way, the other way is just to pull them down with your fingers and roll your thumbs in this way.
It's done before.
It's in Form 4. It's because, actually in 4 it's done because the person's turning his head when you're trying to poke him in the eyes. But you get the idea. So here it's like, pull the glasses up, thumb in the eye. The other thing is that, well, do they have to be wearing glasses for me to do this? No. Your fingertips lift the eyelid up and then your thumb goes in. Thumb goes in, this could be a real bad thing, because thumbnails can cut the cornea in the white part of your eye. And when that happens, then the eye wants to close and it wants to tear up.
Tear up.
And when one eye tears up, both eyes tear up. You won't normally cry with one eye. It's ambidextrous. So, and that in turn is temporary blindness. It's a good thing. And that comes from damage to the eye, whether it's pressure, whether it's a laceration, or so on. It's like, well, how do you know that, Mr. Lee? Because some idiot stuck his thumb in my eye at a karate tournament when I was a brown belt. Okay? I saw it coming, and I couldn't get my head out of the way. He sticks his thumb in my eye, and I start with the eyes tearing up and all that stuff. I said, well, you know, I still got one good eye, so I'll just put that forward. And I beat the snot out of that guy. And I won the match, but my eye was messed up, so I couldn't continue. Afterwards, I went to the eye doctor, and the doctor says, you're gonna have to have a patch on that. What we were talking about this morning, patch on the eye. And, he said, that could have been a lot worse. He says, that cut could have gone all the way down to the foundation membrane. And sometimes, in some people, that foundation membrane crumbles again in the future, and it can make it a recurring injury. So, you need to know that. The byproduct of that is, what's that person got underneath their fingernails?
Dirt. Bacteria.
Okay? So,
Washing your hands.
you get an infection in your eye, this is why eye infections are very serious, is because it's close to your brain. And that could result in something that's pretty bad. I think that this is part of where the legend of the Denmark comes from. You guys know what Denmark is? Death touch. There is actually a chart.
Death touch.
Of things. Death touch is the light touch at a certain time of day in a certain way does damage that can lead to disabling or even death. I think that if some guy would slash at someone with intending to hit him with a ridge hand, the guy pulled his head back and sliced his eye with his fingernail and had crud underneath his fingernails, causes an infection, and they're in a rice paddy 100 miles from any kind of medical care. What do you think's gonna happen? That infection's gonna fester, and they lose their eye, or it might even kill it. I don't know if you're familiar with how they work in rice paddies, but they use to fertilize it with. Anybody? Human waste. You want that stuck in your eyeball? I think that's part of where that's part of it. All right, so we flicked. Step. Go around the make a V-step. And you higher and twirling wings on the standard side. You step toward the corner with your right, stack your hands on your right hip. Over the top, outward overhead elbow, right poke in the eye, turn to your neutral or sideways with an upward elbow, reverse both, hammer fist, and your right hand is in a high check position by your left shoulder, and pivot toward them and pin. Step through and do crossing down. So this crossing talon is different than the standard crossing talon, which is different than the crossing talon in long 3, right? Okay. There's a whole bunch of different versions of crossing talon. So you get the free version, pin version, the upside version, downside version, form version, front version, side version. Are you guys familiar with those? No? No? All right. Who's in your table with us like this? Oh. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. People at the hotel are, what?
Yeah.
So most of you do this for a right-to-right cross wrist grab, which is one reason why it's called crossing talon. Okay, it's that cross grab. The other reason is because you step across the body. Okay, keep it in check. So there's a free version, which does this. There's a pin version, which does this. Pin version is what you do in short 3. And the reason why, if you look at the footwork, in long 3, he's right there. I need to do 1 step. In short 3, I have to do a full step to get to him. And if I'm too slow, when I start to do this, all he's got to do is let go. And look at the position he's in. If he hangs on, he's in the position to do freestyle technique B1A on me. So in short 3, it's like, gotcha. doing the upside version. The upside version means you got the reversal either way. And this goes up and then down. Downside version is you got him over and you work from the top down. Making sense to you? And there's a flat to flat version. They grab you like this. So if somebody were to grab my wrist this way, it wouldn't make much sense for me to go. You have to tell them to tense up, you just knew that was gonna happen. So you just latch on this way, and I would probably go into the upside version, turn that into darting mace maybe. And go from there. Okay? So that's why it's different in short three. Long three is the one where you're facing, and short three is the one you're farther away. That's why the pin's there. Okay, all right, that's the beginning. Just making any sense?
Sure.
Yeah. Is it helping?
Yes,
I hope. Okay. You know, I wrote these books over the years, and I wrote the Kimpo number series, 101, 201, 301. And 201 started with the ones and twos, and then 3, 4, 5, 6. And then those were compiled, so if you have the book I have out there called the Kimpo Karate Compendium, they took all of that stuff with some improvements and they put it into one volume. Even so, I still get people saying, I wish you'd have the individual volumes like you used to. Well, I can't do that because of copyright issues, all of that. But that information was in there because nobody else was writing it down. And I thought it needed to be preserved. And part of the funny part is that Mr. Parker asked me to do all the photographs for Infinite Insights, and he wanted all the forms done. So I went into the photography studio and shot all the forms from 1 through long 3, step by step. Gave him the pictures, he said, reshoot this one, reshoot this one. He got it exactly the way that he wanted it, and that's what he was going to put in the book. And he said, it takes up too much space. So he took everything from long 2 and above that never made it into the book. Took short 1, long 1, and short 2, turned those into pictures, cartoons really, that Edmund drew. And in the course, Edmund changed some of the hand positions. So you'll see like what I did in the picture and what we do when we practice is not what's in the book. And Mr. Parker would put stuff in the book that was incorrect on purpose. Because somebody could learn from the book, and if they showed it to you, you could say, you learned from the book, you didn't learn that from the teacher. That was his way of handling that. The funny part about all that is that people will come back and tell me, they go, well, you're doing form wrong, it's not what we do in the book. I'm the guy in the book. Okay, step up and hit, inward, outward, poke and punch, cat, drop, line and back, elbow hammer, V-step, inward elbow, up into the corner, cock your hand, over the top, circling leg. Do the pin, step through, bring it down, outward elbow, in overhead elbow. Okay, then you slide that foot in. Okay, slide your right in and go, right foot in and go kick, kick, stop. Left-handed scraping hoof, you do the twin, shape of the crane, step through, double uppercut with the middle knuckles, double back knuckles, double pokes. And here's the trick. You got to retrain your brain again when you do this, because when you do the right side, you want your right hand on top. When you do the left side, you want your left hand on top. It's real easy just to default to the other side. That's another reason we do the left side, is to retrain your brain. Make sense? So crossing talon. Right hand, right? Arch. Okay, kick, stomp. Feet come down square. Okay, in the technique, you should come down in a T position. Okay, but in the form, you come down this way because all it does is prevent having to go and do do a bunch of little steps to adjust. That's called for the sake of the form. There are certain angles and footwork that we do for the sake of the form because it cleans it up. If you've been taught the applications, you know like that footwork doesn't really go there. Just do it so the form is cleaner. Less shifting around. Now let's think about crossing talon. Go 1, 2, 3. It's not the whole technique the way you learned it. It's one of the things that students will do when you're teaching them. They go right into, and you go, no, not like that. And the students go, I thought that's what you wanted. No, we don't do that. So you stop at this elbow and you cheat in. So the question should be, why? That child attitude? Why? Why is that heel palm claw not there? Why is this heel palm and the knee sandwich not there? Anybody?
It's like a phone.
The person attacking you with scrape and hoof already got you.
So you're showing the knee sandwich later in the form.
Cross-faced.
Run the right way. What's the purpose of forms? Cataloging movement. Okay. They act as a dictionary or an encyclopedia. Dictionaries give you a brief definition. That's what the one and the two forms do. The threes and above are the encyclopedia forms. The encyclopedia is knowledge in depth. So we're looking at this and saying, oh, we're indexing information. Now this is the thing about the Parker system, is you learn the technique. You go break his arm, elbow, heel palm, claw, rip his face, burdening check. And we're over head elbow between the shoulder blades to the spine. That should cause his legs to kick out. He wants to fall on his face. You're gonna heel palm him in the back of the head, right at the base of the skull as your knee sandwich into his face, maintaining control so that you can't get that broken arm out there and do something strange with it intentionally or unintentionally. So if you look at the knee sandwiches that are in short form 3, one of them does cross body, which is what you're talking about. Okay, which means they're using an opposite leg and opposite hand. And you're going to have another technique that does that with 2 hands. The one that is missing is the one that does, actually you do this, and you get the locking, or to locked wing. So taking it out of crossing talon makes you say, why? That's the third part of the category. You learn the application, you already know how to do that. If you don't know the application, you're missing information. So, anybody here do the Tracy system before?
Years ago.
There, right there, yeah.
I did too. You're missing a whole lot of stuff. I'm not saying that with prejudice, just it's a fact. And nobody ever told us any of this. But by cataloging this information, but the techniques teach you the applications, the form, you go, I know the application, but this is why this isn't in here. So it's conspicuous by its absence. It's like when you have a party and you go, where's so-and-so? How come they're not here today? They're conspicuous by their absence. So missing pieces in the forms are not really missing. They're just not in the form because he wanted you to think. Okay, that's what he kept telling us. I want you folks to think. Those were his words. I want you folks to think. Okay? Be critical thinkers and ask questions. So that's why that's not in there. This heel palm and claw, that's not in there either, technically, because it shows up in Form 5. That's where that is.
Isn't it also in locked wing?
No, not in the standard. It's in the extension, but not in the standard. There's nothing wrong with throwing a claw in there.
Method action.
It was not in the standard the way you wrote it out. I think it's a great idea, just bam, tail with that. But we don't do that. Okay, we step up. You know, the bottom line on this is I come in from out of town, it makes me the expert. And, I'm not telling you have to do it my way. Okay, whoever your senior instructor is, they tell you which way they want you to do it. So, and that's the way you do it. You will do it like that. So,
They say they wouldn't done.
inward, outward, poke, punch. Handstand, slick, branching wings, step, forward, step, circle, and crossing talon. Up. Okay, scraping hook, left side, kick, stop. Fatal cross. Twin middle knuckle uppercuts. Cross your left hand over your right hand. Back knuckle. Okay, left hand stays over the right hand. Pull. And you try not to do this. Okay, that's just my arms. Should be a little bit of body English. Let me get that. Then you step up and you do the grip of death on the standard side. That's the side that when you learn the opposite side, the right side, you go, oh, it's left-handed. That screws a lot of people up. There's a reason for it. Now you spin yourself around and do the outward elbow for lock in. Break them. Step back, and then you sandwich. Okay. So this is where the angles start getting wonky. Where am I? So we'll go through it then. Scrape and hook. Kick, stop. Okay, scraping hoof has a headbutt to the rear, correct?
Yep.
So this is the headbutt to the front. Typically in Chinese systems, whenever you throw an uppercut, there's a headbutt in there. Some systems do it, it's more pronounced. You do it like that. But you know that when you hit somebody low, that they're going to bend forward, so you might as well bank on the headbutt. And you hit them, hard part of your head right there. But it's not real obvious. Every move, concept, principle, definition is an opposite and reverse. You get headbutt to the back, you get headbutt to the front. 1, 2, 3. Make your heart shape, step up through the grip of death. Now your right hand is aimed at 730. You can spin your bad self around to 730. Is your outward elbow. When you do your outward elbow, try to do it when you go from here and you turn. Do it like you're doing this. People like to do this and they make a big circle and try to throw that. It's not the idea. Just throw that straight line. It's a more effective technique when you hit somebody with an elbow in the face or the teeth or the chin. And elbows like that take teeth out like that. I've seen it happen. One girl got hit in the face in a tournament with an outward elbow and she took her mouthpiece out and her teeth were in it. Another guy got punched in the face and it rolled his 2 front teeth back on a 45-degree angle, and he went, put him back in place, put his mouthpiece back in, back to it. But it doesn't take much to knock teeth out. Okay. So you stepped up, you did the grip of death, and you step back, do it like you're cutting your own throat, elbow, you can do the claw if you want, go to the break. Okay, so it's break, trap, step. Your left hand comes up and around, and when it gets to the 45-degree angle, that is the timing for the knee. If you're not sure when that's supposed to happen, that's how it works. This gets to 45. And anytime you do a knee strike, you're supposed to bend your support leg. Okay, it's not like you pick yourself up. You should really be bending support leg, and most of our techniques when you do a knee, you go forward. Most of them. You don't normally do a knee shot and then step back. There's a couple. There are anomalies, which we'll do in a bit. That's the idea. Okay. And where you hit them with the knee makes a difference. When we were having breakfast this morning, we were talking about these things. Back when I was competing, knees to the groin, headbutts, and kidney strikes were all legal techniques. I got tied up with a guy, so they got wrapped up, and I hit him with a knee shot, and I expected him to go back, but apparently I hit him and he went up. And when he went up, he actually slid forward, he slid up my leg. So he was sitting on my thigh, and I had underhooks in there, so I had his arms trapped, and we kinda looked at each other for a second, so I hit him with a headbutt. And, back then it was a legal technique, so I get the point. But it was instructive to me for a couple of reasons. One was like, oh, I thought he was gonna go back, but I'd hit him and he goes up. So I realize now, straight knee shots going in, driving backwards, knee shots going up, driving forward. Okay? I think that's some news you can use. And, the headbutt, I was glad that I found myself doing that, because that was my instinct. And I stopped tournament fighting after that because it became an illegal technique, and I didn't want to take that out of my repertoire. I didn't want to retrain myself to fight without doing headbutts and knees and all that, because they said, you can't do that no more. I said, no, I want to keep doing that, so that's the way I want to fight. So, no tournament rules for me. So hook, middle knuckles, back knuckles pokes, grip of death, slide heel palm, slide back, outward elbow, wrap around break, trap, step, big 45. Okay, now your hands are back here, pull forward, that's the reverse of this. Okay, when you step and you do cross twists, outward elbow, inward overhead, match them up, smash. There's that second knee. One was missing in crossing talon, then you picked it up again in locked wing, and then you picked this version up, so all the knee sandwiches are different. Just to say, same side, cross side, both. So you know all of them now. Okay. There's one that's missing.
Say what's missing?
My front leg. It's in long term. Blinding sacrifice. Okay, because when you're doing blinding sacrifice, wouldn't you much rather do this? Wow. Do it with your rear leg, when it's done with your front leg. Okay, so Mr. Parker said, you know, you can do them with your front. So we stuck it in blinding sacrifice up in the next form. So you see how the pieces fit together? Some people take our system and they rearrange it. They take stuff out, put things in, because they don't always understand how it's built. And it's kind of like, you know, a lot of us, the guys have got a can full of nuts and bolts in the garage, stuff that we took apart, put back together, didn't quite put all the pieces back where they should have. And it's a system. So we have a system, and if you start taking pieces and parts out of the techniques, you might not have all the information that was actually encapsulated in there. For example, if I do crossing talon, not crossing talon, but cross twigs. Okay, you know, cross twigs, yes. Okay. So I go to grab her, she steps up to the 45, she turns, she does this outward elbow, she pulls down, okay. Now, she says, you know what? I don't think I'm really ready to do that inward overhead elbow, so she takes this hand and checks this arm. Okay, now she comes around and does that and the knee. Will that work? It'll work. Yeah, it'll work. Okay, so why do we not do that? Because it takes one of the bolts out of the system. Okay, now what's missing is this. This is crossing talon on your back, right? Instead of on your front. So it's a piece of information. It's the only place in our system that we cross that and grab it and do it on our back. In the Philippine systems, we got a lot. Mark, you've run into that, haven't you? Where they do those crossover locks.
Crossing locks?
You these things? No?
I just do the sticks, so
Oh, okay.
don't do too much of the FDM.
But they do these arm locks with different parts of the body, and we do the same thing. So Cross Twig says, you know what, if you got them behind you, you can still make this work. Okay, it's crossing talon on the back. But if you take that out, and you do this, and check, and then do this, it's like you miss that little piece that you might need because you're grappling with somebody. Go. Now you don't know how to do that. That information's gone. So don't mess with the techniques. Okay. Scraping hoof. Going into fatal cross, 1, 2, 3. Step up, double hammer. Turn heel palm. Third elbow. Knock his teeth out, break his arm. Lock him up. Step through sandwich. Cross twigs, outward elbow. Tail down, hammer overhead. March him up. And stretch. So remove concept, principle, and definition. It's got an opposite and reverse. Okay. We did crossing talon. The funny part is when you do the standard technique, you do it with your left hand. Okay, most of us are right-handed, but we get used to doing this, and we ask you to do it with your strong hand. It feels funny. Right? But Mr. Parker said you do crossing talon because he's got your strong hands. You're gonna have to respond with your weak hand, and you work from there and you train that. And cross twigs is crossing talon mechanics on the other side. It's got all the same components, but the guy's behind you instead of in front of you, so it's called disguised repetition. Where did he get that idea? Here's your history lesson. Ed Parker moved from Hawaii to Utah, where he got his degree, and he moved down to Los Angeles because he felt as a young man that his job, his destiny was to take Kimbo to the world, which is what he did. And when he got to California, Southern California, he met a lot of famous people, influential people, and one of the men that he worked with was Blake Edwards, who was a movie producer, a director. And he's the guy that did Pink Panther movies, and Ed Parker would be in 2 of the Pink Panther movies. Blake Edwards is married to Julie Andrews. Anybody know who Julie Andrews is? That was. Old people, raise your hand. Julie Andrews did like The Sound of Music. She did Mary Poppins and so on. So Ed Parker meets Julie Andrews, and he says, "How is it that you are able to sing so fast that people can still understand you?" And she said, "You need to enunciate. You need to pronounce. And once you get that, then you can speed it up." And he said, "You know what? If you're doing movement, if you pronounce your moves, that's part of our terminology. You pronounce the move, it becomes more understandable, which means it's going to have the effect on the body that it should have." So he got that idea from Julie Andrews. Then he meets a music teacher with the last name of Suzuki. I can never remember his first name, but it's in the book. And he visits Suzuki and he watches him teach. Suzuki was famous for teaching children how to play the violin, among other instruments. So what he did was he watched him. He would hold the bow or hold the violin and work the bow. And then he would have him hold the bow and work the violin to get the same result, and then do them both. So he was getting the same result 3 different ways with disguised repetition. And he built that into our system. And this is why you see the techniques. You go, that one's a lot like this one over here, or it's the same thing on the other side. When I asked him why he did that, he said because most people are lazy and won't practice both sides of the technique. But if they do the system the way that we wrote it down, they'll get the left side mechanics anyhow. Well, you should still practice your techniques right and left-handed, and that's why we're doing short 3 like this. Okay, does that sound reasonable? Yeah. Okay, so step up and punch. Again, inward, outward, peel them off, poke them in the eye, punch. Cat stance, drop, down and back, elbow hammer, V-step. Whirling wing, step up, and circling wing, 1, 2, 3. Do pin, step through, break down, inward overhead elbow. We're going to scraping hook, kick, stomp. Hooks to hands, middle knuckles, back knuckles, polka dots. Step up, grip of death. Okay, step back, we will lock the wing, so you're stepping back to 730 right now. Break them, step back again to 730. They go up to 1030, 130, and step again to 130, turn and do cross trips. And now you're facing 1030 in a horse stance, and you do the wings itself. 1, 2. Alright, so now we're facing back to 1030. You got mirror image body mechanics. You did scraping hook, kick, stomp, and this one does it right side. Lock the wing does the forearm break with one hand, and just hook does the break on the other hand. So you look for the matched mechanics as you go through this. And you pin with your right. In concrete shield in 1030, this is typically done with an inside forearm strike to the outside of the elbow, and a front kick to the knee, drop down with an elbow, upward elbow, and a claw. We do a step to the reverse. Strike on the serpent's head on the opposite side. We do our body flipping. Strike to the shoulder, left arm, up to the horse. Good enough of a brain bender? You also want to start looking for themes.
I have a question for you, Mr. Wedlake. So when we're doing that inward strike on, concrete shield, is that the opposite of what we're doing in short, long 2 when we come over here, block, strike, and then we start?
Yeah, you could call it that. Okay. It's really reversing the mechanics along the one is you turn with an inward, then you punch, and that one you turn.
Okay.
You do it backwards. Reverse
Right,
sequence.
yeah, good, that's it.
So you want to start looking for these themes, and short form 2 gives you this. And it's the beginning of the middle knuckle theme. It goes all the way up into 6. So you look at this, that's in short 2, and then you get up into short 3, and you get the long 3, and you get the 4, 4 and 5, and then you get the 6. So you start to see how these things are built up in a theme. So the information is in forms. They're great big databases. That's what they do. All right, let's do it one more time. So you step up, second punch. Inward, outward, hold, punch. Cast stance, drop, down and back, V-step. Step to the corner, over the top, circling wing opposite side. In, step to the break, elbow, inward overhead elbow, then kick, stomp. Step to the left, middle knuckles, back knuckles, pokes with the left hand on top, make the big circles into the grip of death. Peeling back at the heel cone. Step back and do the locked wing on the opposite side. And break them, step back to trap. Big circle. Step up, crossing talons, or cross straight. Spin. Lift, drop, step to reverse, hold down, punch, push. Transitions, they have information in them as well. So when you're doing cross twigs, so you could have done cross twigs and had the person in this position. face instead of being done on this guy behind you. Or if you're doing, the interlock wing, comes in here. And you're gonna go crossways. It's actually. So you fill the wings with those. Make sense? Okay, you guys know about the 7 footwork? No? Okay, so when you do crashing wings steps out and draws a 7. Now, you're going to have that, like you do the left side, so now you do it on this side. But if you do the standard techniques, you have that in crushing hammer. Now, if you have a footwork pattern, you gotta look at it and go, let's move it around and see what it does. So when you get up to long 3, you do this, and then you do this. So you're reversing the pattern. And then you go, well, I know that, but I also know a technique called tripping arrow. That takes the pattern and flips it forward. So he's telling you opposite sides, reverse actions as well. And so that information is hidden in the forms too. Good?
I got a question for you. When you were talking about, crossways.
Locking and crossways.
When you said you could add this before you go on to the next strike, is that saying basically the same thing as what we're doing in 4 with thundering hammers? After we finish
Yeah.
up here, and we're here before we go on to the next one?
Yeah, it's up to you to be creative, like how are you gonna apply those transitions?
Okay,
So yes.
okay.
Take a couple minutes, hydrate, and we'll get back to part 2.
Sir.
Checking the start.
Instructor.
I'm checking the start. So you never come here. Filipino, he came in here too.
Last thing my
I got some. Basically the same thing as what we're doing here, right?
Yeah, I think he just takes it.
You're pulling that around behind you now?
Yeah, just,
Now you're doing, the opposite, the backside of, Truss and Talon.
after us, yeah,
I wanna do it this way.
yeah, palm should be up, but yeah,
See, if I do it over here, poke him on the neck, cause he can grab you.
yeah.
Now do it like you said, you take
Come in this way. Come in this way. You can see this possibly. You do, come in this way, yeah. Figure out how to get to that point. Yeah, I think it was coming off.
Yeah.
Like an angle or something. It came off something, but it was more like this. Yeah, but it was for a club attack.
That's where I have it be.
And trapped the leg. Yeah. Yeah, he trapped the leg. Missing somebody. Similar to that. He just sat.
All right, let's get back to it. Run the daylight.
So what you were saying with, the inward outward on destructive swings, that also applies not only in long 1, but in 2s also, right? Because you're coming off with. And then we're coming. That's right. What am I thinking of? Let me check my notes.
Okay,
Hold on. Inward outward block.
now last
transition
night,
between long one and
see,
long
several
two.
of you were down at the Madeira School, right?
Sir.
And I started to touch on something that I call anomalies. anomalies are things that, you know, they, things like, oh, we were taught not to do that, but now we get to do it. So if you drop down into a horse stance, and you're in this horse stance and you throw a punch with your right hand, for example, this is how we train people, but it's like, there's no bracing angle, right? So what we do is we turn them into a neutral bow and say, let's do it with a forward bow so we have the proper bracing angle and all that, correct? Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of short three. Oh, we're punching in horse stance. Didn't we tell you not to do that? So why is it you can't?
Exciting.
Maybe.
You cancel that, your attacker's line?
You're using your partner, your attacker, as the base. This is what the Chinese call the three-legged boxer. So when I got to here and I pulled down, it's like I got 1, 2, 3. That's what allows me to hit with some power. Because normally, if you do this, the opposing force drives you back. So we have a couple of techniques that do odd things like that. Shield and mace is one of them too. And that's where we get into, it's the angle of delivery and proper timing and all of that stuff. So my point with doing some of these is to say, well, let's look at some of the rules that we learned as beginners and do we bend them or break them or what have you when we get up to another level. I don't think you're bending or breaking rules. I think you've got a new rule that's applied here. Another example is in Conquering Shield. So when you do the application on Conquering Shield, typically what you do is when he's got this grab in here, is you're pinning and you're kicking across into this leg as you do the break. Whoops. Yeah? Okay. Well, one of the general rules is that you attack a vertical with a horizontal and vice versa. Right? Yeah, it is. Here comes a horizontal punch. Are we going to use a horizontal block? I need to use a vertical. Typically, if I want to attack a vertical target, I get more margin for error if I use a horizontal weapon. But we have a couple of techniques that attack a vertical weapon or vertical target with a vertical weapon. Why is that? Everybody know how to do cross of destruction? Get a partner, do cross of destruction, but do a side kick instead of a front kick to that far knee. That's an action. Find out when you do it.
Is it rotates your hips before you can actually land a stronger base. You're rotating before.
Because, yeah, your shoulders are the wrong way.
Yeah, bye guys, bye Amanda, bye.
More
Bye,
weeks I
man.
can rotate.
Takes you out of position.
Yeah.
If I turn and then I'm more.
Some of you figured it out already. Dave, this is actually the first one. And what did you say?
Just over rotates your body before you can actually have a good strong base to complete
Some of you found that when you got the guy crossed up and you're like, yeah, it's like, now I have to try to break from this position. It's like, we don't want to give up that break, and that's another category of motion, because if you look at all the techniques, it's like, how many ways do we teach somebody to break someone's arm? And this one falls into like, I'm gonna break his arm with his own arm. And so we need that information, but he said, you know what, now you have the opportunity to do a front kick to a vertical target. Okay? And part of that is because when you hold on the person, you set the lines up so you can get away with that. So as you pull this around, it actually makes them step like that. This leg becomes a check against that leg as you fire. And then you put the hip rotation there is like, that's kind of hard to do. Now look at the awkward position I'm in to try to do this break. So I said, you know what? It's better if we just cross off that and then come to here and crack them. Make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you've got a couple of techniques that do that where they cross the body for the check, but we allow you to do that because of the mechanics that go with this. And if you look at it, the kicking this straight on hasn't got a lot of margin for error because it's easy to slide off. But when you start looking at somebody who's a little more sideways, it's almost like the target's doubly wide.
Mm-hmm.
So you can fire that kick.
Question, sir.
Yes.
For, kind of comparing to like other styles like judo, if you were to do that technique, the full technique would be a throw. Is there other instances where I'm assuming that Mr. Parker set it up as if you don't get the throw and you have the counter?
You know, he was a black belt in judo.
Yeah, I figure some of these,
And so there's a lot of relationship, and that's where the stand-up jiu-jitsu comes in, which we're gonna do a little bit of in a couple of minutes.
Mhm.
But he did not like having your hands tied up to throw somebody. And if you do a little bit of judo, you know that there are hand throws and there are body throws.
Mhm.
So this was not really designed to be a hand throw, for a failed throw.
Mhm.
It was really designed to, let's just break his arm. That's what his intent was.
Mhm.
You guys know about the thumb break on that technique? Break 'em. Okay, so that's another one of the anomalies that we're talking about when we do these things. I've got a whole list of these guys, and, are you familiar with the technique called, defensive cross? Okay. The general rule is that you don't strike when you're going back. In other words, you don't do that. But if you look at defensive cross, so what is the mitigating factor?
You're pulling them into that strike.
So you're,
As I come back and strike, instead of me going forward striking, they're coming towards me as I strike.
So that's one reason, is that you need the room because he's coming forward. Okay.
let's say, your back foot lands as the punch hits, so you have your back foot now.
Okay, well, see, the thing that's different on this technique is that it doesn't do this, it does this. So the mitigating factor is A, is that, and B, is this is going up and not forward. So you have to look at these things, because, you know, some students will say, well, you said I'm not supposed to step back when I hit. Now you got me stepping back when I hit. No, it's not the same.
But aren't you punching in coordination set like that, midpoint balance?
The coordination set is a set, but that is a standard approach.
Okay,
Like you do with a buckle and a takedown.
okay.
That's,
Okay, so you'd have to look at it, it's like, yeah, why did I do that? See, that's the point of me asking you these questions, but don't I do that over here? But how else can that be used? Okay. So I got a whole list of these
Let
guys.
it go.
No. We have a rule that, you keep your hand above your elbow when you strike. Okay, why do we do that? Because it uses your latissimus muscles more. So come forward a little bit. Could you do, zone kimono for me? You're smiling already, right? Okay, again, please, go. Again. Go. Yeah, I'm seeing all sorts of different variations. Many of you are doing this. Okay, you did it and you smile because, oh, we just said something about that rule. Okay, elbows above the hand. So if you do that, why are you doing that?
Fitting
See? Angle of cancellation. I snap his arm, crack, okay, and I bring this down and across. Now, if I keep my elbow below my wrist, I have an angle of cancellation against myself. Some of you are cheating a little bit. You're going, well, I'm gonna do a thrusting chop there. The idea was to do the frictional pull, and as he comes up, is to follow that line. Okay, so this is where you get to keep your elbow above your wrist because you need this complementary angle to get the proper line of entry so you get the angle of contact that you want.
Can you see it as tracking, same way you move your
Yes.
blade sword here, sword destruction, tracking upward?
Yeah, so you're getting the idea, like he's trying to tell you all these different lines that you can follow.
Now
That's
that-
the story.
That would be in the ideal phase, right? If I chose to change my target and just take it right across the side of his face, then I'm still in correct alignment, right?
If you're doing that, yes.
I'm doing that.
Okay, now you're not getting,
I'm not
that's why we
getting-
need the ideal phases to say, let's put him in this position and see how that works. Okay, instead of going, how am I gonna get at that throw, or should I just, I could throw a back knuckle instead.
Yeah,
Change the weapon, change the target, change the, or regulate the amount of force and so on, but he wanted this. So he wanted you to learn how to do that lifting chop.
Lifting chop.
So that's what, these are some of the things you need to look through the techniques and go, I thought I was taught this way over here, but now we change it. We're doing something different over here. I want to give you a little taste of something that we created over the last couple of years called the Locksmith program. Anybody heard about this yet? You have. Anybody else heard about the Locksmith program?
Sir, yes.
Okay. So one of my black belts in England has done a lot of the locking arts. He's done Chin-on, Jiu-Jitsu, Aikido, Judo, Kempo, and so on. He's done some Lua, done some Danzanru, and so he said, I got this idea. What do you think? Yeah, it's a good idea. So he built a Locksmith program, and we got some volunteers, the 4 guys. We got 4 of them out of Chicago, and we started to teach them online, basically, until we got some hands-on work. But the Locksmith program is built like the Parker system. In other words, that you have an idea with an ideal phase technique, and then you got all these what-ifs that you do with it. The Locksmith follows that pattern, so a Kempo person doesn't have to stop and think about it. The problem that a lot of us have is like, we really like to get a little bit more of this jujitsu type information, but A, we don't want to roll around on the ground. Okay.
B, so
B,
can't.
the thinking is different. So we built this so that a Kempo person goes, that's just like this. And it shows us offense and defensive sides of some of the locking techniques. And everybody that we've shown it to, after we ran the beta testers through, it took about 1.5 to 2 years before they came out. By the end, they were instructors with this. But we had a manual that went through like 17 different variations because we found out we were overloading in one place and not doing enough in another place. But we got it with their feedback so we could build this program, and we started to teach it in other cities, and the Kempo people have said, this is exactly what we're looking for. It gives us an expansion on some of the techniques that we already do that have little introductions to locking series, like Gifted Destiny and Broken Gift, and that sort of thing. So we have this drill that we like to teach called Declare War on the Elbow. Yeah. Ouch. Everybody likes this one. It's kind of taken on a life of its own. So,
Declare war on
where you pieces and parts
the
of
other.
it.
Yeah.
Attack to the bone.
So it starts like glancing salute. So we're going to declare war on the elbow here with this. Here we go. Crack from here, and we circle underneath and crack into an uppercut break. Then we're going to go into the Broken Gift, Gifted Destiny sort of thing. So the idea of this is we like to categorize things. High line, middle line, low line. So this hand is gonna start up here, it's gonna work down to here, it's gonna work down to here. Cause you have high line breaks and you got low line breaks. If I do this and I try to do an uppercut break here, you don't feel anything different, do you? It's not working. Okay, if I try to do this down here, it's not working. So you need to understand the difference between a high line break and a low line break. So we have a high line break here, a midline, and then we have this. So this is going to be the key. So you're going to hear me say today, get that hand down by your belt. Get that hand down by your belt. So we'll start with that. Start like Lance and salute. Go into broken rod. Slip this hand down. Crank the fingers back into the finger lock. Use this one to help. Flapping elbow. So this is just broken gift. Or Lance's here. Okay. Get them. Be careful on those elbow joints. Safety first.
Drop it down. There. Flat. Yeah, flat. I think it's a punch.
Are you doing that handshake? Is that what you're doing? So in other words, a break.
It's kind of like
So you go from the
There you go.
turn it up.
All it is.
Right.
Yeah. So there you go.
So you're. Oh, yeah, I can feel that. Yeah, just turning it up and to kind of focus on and then move you got them the second time.
So it's just a matter of rough. Oh, that's.
I was just trying to go from break.
So it's down to.
That's the handshake.
yeah.
But you're still.
So this, do this practice, so help me right? But if I just drop this like there and rotate this there, this is so it's absolutely here, and then here. Yeah, I bring him into your body, so okay. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're stuck.
Okay, time. You will get time to do this over and over and over slide this down, so it slides to here. Got this contact manipulation, it's not, you will lose them. So this slides down, slides in, starts to crank, so we get a nice long lever. The lower it goes, the better it is. If it's down here, you just pop this up and around. Okay, come on in, so you can't see it. See it from there? Hold it a minute.
Bird's eye.
Go from here, I'm gonna maintain this and do it on the inside. This is
I know.
not where you wanna be.
No, that other hand, yeah.
Hand. But this is to teach you how to transition from one side into the other side. Okay. So this is a broken gift on the inside. You guys already know how to do this. This. Make sense?
Sir.
And then we're gonna change up from there, so that transition is the key. Break them here, hold them down, stand them up, keep control, switch up, and opposite side. And don't do this. Push all the way.
Down.
So we're here. Okay? Get them.
Nice. Yeah, maintain that.
And as soon as you brought it down like this, ooh. There you go.
Go back.
Because, and that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, and then I can't do it.
That's the same, but just rotate. There you go.
There you go. We saw that. As soon as you went here, he went up.
As soon as I'm here, you go, as soon as I drop it, then it changes that dynamic. So in that progression. Close to the handshake. And now grab here, but never letting and then I leave it down there. Good?
No, you're good.
There you go. Now we're on there you go. The whole
September, what did July, August? I got 2 more months.
we were just talking about Now you're on the left side, going B side.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. You see that a lot.
Boom.
Okay, time. So the hand came in from the top, crack, crack. And it over the other side. Whoop, bad position, up to here. Yeah. So now you're using your shoulder as the lock. This is still not where you want to be. Somebody asked me earlier, why are we doing that? I said, sometimes we wind up in places that we didn't want to be. We need to know how to work with it. So this teaches you how to go from this progression and slide up to, let's use a different part of the body to exert the pressure. Okay, that's all it is. You're learning how to do glancing salute. Typically, you're taking the fulcrum, you pull this back, this is a fixed point, and then this pushes forward. If you flash a mace, this becomes the fixed point, and this goes forward to be the brake, so you just reverse the mechanics of the brake. So we're doing these sort of things, it's like we're doing one side, we're doing the other side. We're doing the brake with the forearm, we're putting the lock on with the elbow, and now we're gonna put the same lock on with the shoulder. So you get familiar with what body parts can do what. So eventually you're gonna be working down into exotic stuff where you're locking with fingers, all this good stuff. Okay. And that's what the Locksmith program is about. So I need you to work through this combo again. So you're going 1, 2, 3, transition, 4, 5. Okay. Tapping is important. We don't want any broken arms in here, but if you feel like the pressure's too much, tap them, tap yourself, okay?
Tap, tap.
Thumper.
Yeah, I always forgot this how and the transition.
You broke back in the shoulder. So I was able to, yeah, there. There you go. As if you came back all the way up. You got it, you got it. It started and it was like, get above the elbow. It was weird. Yeah. You almost wish you could, right?
Okay, next part is real easy. Somebody just figured it out already? So you are in here. This is the nasty version of this. The Japanese judo people call it seonai shoulder throw. But when Kano developed judo, it was called Kano Jiu-Jitsu. And he said, yeah, let's make it the genital red. So they took the arm break and stuff out. But actually, if you study judo long enough, you got what's called the atemi waza, which is the striking. And they did all the stuff like what we would do. I have an old Kodokan judo book that I bought when I was a kid, 1967. And I was leafing through it the other day, looking at some of these things and seeing they got knife and gun defenses in the judo book. That's what they did. And so you see, these things are basically, what if you were in there and you wanted to do a shoulder throw, but the guy's getting a little twirly, so you snap his elbow from. So you would actually throw him on his head as you broke his arm. It pretty much solves the problem. I had a judo instructor when I was in college, and he got into it with somebody on the street, out on the sidewalk. He says, the guy threw a punch at me, so I stepped in and I did seonai, this shoulder throw. Wham! Drops the guy on the concrete. The guy gets up and throws another punch. So Mike steps in. Wham! Does it again. The guy got up again, and he threw another, same punch. And Mike said, well, I did it. He said, the third time he stayed down, he had enough, because he was throwing him on the sidewalk, on the concrete. If you'd have done the street version, Kano Jiu-Jitsu stuff, you'd have broken his arm in the process, or you'd have done a knee drop, because it cuts the circle, which is a Parker principle, and drive his head into the ground. And it's what we call it street throws. We're actually working on a program like this with street throws for Kimpo, based on 5 or 6 different judo throws, which are the same mechanics as Kimpo techniques, but they're used in judo throws, because we looked at that and said, that's, Uchimata is the same as a reverse bow buckler. And this one is the same throw as what you do in trip and arrow. And this one is the same as what you do over here. So we will show you how to do this on multiple planes. See, if you decided you needed to do a throw, you could do a throw. We don't want you to do what judo people do, which is to grab on, hang on, and throw. Judo has changed a lot over the years. I was teaching in New Hampshire up at Steve White School, and he had myself and Jimmy Pedro teaching classes. If you don't know who Jimmy Pedro is, he has taken the gold in judo in the Olympics a couple of times. Okay, certified tough guy. And I'm watching him teach. I pull him on the side later. I said, I have a question. I said, when I learned judo, you didn't do the grips the same way, and it wasn't so power oriented. He says, absolutely. He says, they changed it from what was being done in the 60s. It was largely because of the influence of the Russian athletes, who did a lot more on power. Okay, so you got these big Russians against the smaller Japanese. Okay, so it's got this power versus technique sort of thing, but the sport mutated it to more of a power judo. And when I was taught, it was called fingertip throws. Because you just stepped in, you didn't use a lot of power. It was all mechanics, is what it should be. Okay. And so I want to give y'all that, so that you can say, you know, we got this little bit of judo that we can plug in here, and it's useful, because sometimes you need to do a throw instead of. Right, makes sense? It's what we call the drunken uncle techniques. Sometimes you just gotta take them down instead of busting them
It's a
up.
sushi.
So we got on the inside, and we crack them here and say, you know what, that's not really a good place, so I need to slide this over to here. So it's really just right side, you go, no, that's not good, because you got that hand there, so I'm gonna do this. We try not to do this. Okay. If he's got any smarts, and he probably does, when he sees or feels this, you can take that check hand, just push it forward, and take it down. So, I advise you to treat this like, working with a horse. Any horseback riders here? Yes, no? Okay, you know that what they tell you about when you walk behind a horse, it's either 6 inches or 6 feet? This is the same principle. Okay, you either stay way out, okay, or you get real close. So if there was some useful experience I got being a cowboy. So if you're over the right, slide. Okay, get him. Thank you.
And I almost went, that. Are you listening? On the removal here, glancing, or not glancing.
I was just thinking,
That versus flashing, glancing salute versus flashing. One, this one's this.
while you're talking right now, it's not just.
Then you have this one.
I opened the door for you. Push it up. That's my teacher.
So he, what I heard, tell me it's on glancing salute. This was the breaking.
So it's, you're gonna let
This one, this is stable. This is that's what I
that's why you're gonna let, literally why I did that. Just talking about why sure. If you're going versus comes around and trying to be polite, I would keep just twisting. This would slowly twist. But you know what I mean? Because I'm still twisting.
Okay, time. All right, so. So again, here, bam, went to here, bam, another surface here. Okay, so we went shoulder, shoulder, upper arm. This has got to drag in. And ideally, what you'd like to do is go from here, start pulling this down toward your belt. Okay, and there's one or two more moves after this. But you slide it, get to here, it's like you got angle of cancellation. Now if I just do this, if he's strong and he bends this, we're gonna get into a fight. So you gotta stretch him, just like you do on crossing talon. Same sort of thing. So you come across here, pull this down toward your other hip, and use your shoulder. Okay? So get him.
Good weather.
Right there, it's that. Yeah, I know, I am.
A little bit, try going down. Try going down.
Yeah, there's some explosiveness to it.
Here can get around. It's a little bit.
Capturing the storm,
Just kind of dropping.
and you're grabbing like that. It's similar, isn't it? But it's grip similar when you're here?
You're capturing here. Yes.
Because you're holding them like, almost like that.
All the checks that we know.
Okay, time.
You're right.
So, we got to, here and here. Pulling them down. I need a little more help. So that knee comes up, and that knee goes, you wanna get them down enough, he goes, it's not quite going down enough, see how I'm extended here? It's like I really can't do it, so I'm gonna use this knee to help me. I'm gonna drop down on top of that. So, what I said earlier about you're running different surfaces, different parts of the body, you can use like apply the locks. You can lock with your hands, you can lock with your elbows, you can lock up with your shoulders, use your triceps. If you got moving down, you need a little bit of help. Okay, now you can get to here, and you can do, this is called staking.
Mm-hmm.
And you take this and you stake it into the ground. Or you can do a grind. Okay, a grind is when you take this and you grind. You would normally do this as you're kneeling on them. Because when you start to apply pressure, they're gonna try to roll away from this. But you think about it, you can do this, you can stake it down, or you can wrap it up. We have a lock that we do in the locksmith system called a Sepulveda. Yeah. You know that one he does where he pulls up on you? It's got you in a reverse gooseneck? So we have that in there, it's called do a Sepulveda. So when that thing came out in Black Belt magazine, we said, oh, Sepulveda doing a Sepulveda. We love it. Okay, so go ahead and carefully use your knee to take him down.
Yep, there you go. Anchor your hip and put that knee in. That was the one. I like that. There you go. It's above you. Yeah. It's a complete knee to take you down. Pull up a little bit.
business side.
That's a
And they
value.
gotta find that by like 8 years later.
Still ain't being hit when you like.
Okay, so, that's your introduction to what we call DWOT, or declare war on the You should work it right side and left side. And if you were to get involved with the Locksmith program, we say, well, you got model number 1 crossing talon, and you crossing talon. Now, you can do it like this, 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 and you get like 6 different major versions of crossing talon. So it's like, those are your what ifs, those are your failure modes. Like, if this wasn't what you were doing, or you didn't wanna do this, and you wanna change the locking series. That's where it plugs right into the Parker stuff. So if it starts with this, and you thought, well, I was gonna do this, but I don't need to, because I can lock them up and restrain. I was in the security business for years. It's like, you can't go out there and punch and kick people with the cameras on. But we had body cameras, so you're not supposed to do this. But this just gives you alternatives, and there's a lot of appeal that people have today. It's like jiu-jitsu, 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 you hear it all the time. It's, well, but I don't wanna roll around on the ground, so this is jiu-jitsu, this is stand-up jiu-jitsu. Then if you decide you wanna get him in this locking and go put him in a Kimura or something like that, be my guest. But I'm not gonna do that. I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna roll around in a parking lot with somebody. When I was working with the Rangers, I told the chief, I said, if I get in it with somebody, I said, I'm gonna stick my thumb in his eye. I know it'll be my last day at work. But, I am not gonna try to punch it out with some 27-year-old kid that's on fentanyl or something. Not doing it. So the striking stuff is good, and it works hand in hand. You're working the striking technique as a counter to an attack, and you go right into Locksmith, or you're starting with Locksmith, go, oh, you know, it's not quite working, then you go back into striking. So it fits right into the Parker thinking. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lilly had asked me to take a few minutes to take questions about techniques, problem techniques, or just questions in general. Yes.
We've had some conversations within our school and other students as well in regards to gun techniques, the pistol whipping.
Don't do that.
Is there gonna be a change to the gun techniques so that can be removed completely?
That's up to y'all to do that. I mean, I
Okay.
took the pistol whipping out of my schools because of the liability. Okay, every state in the union, you can tell you can only meet force with enough force to cancel the initial attack. So if you do this, you poke his eyeballs out, you break his arm, you take the gun away, and then you pistol whip him, that's going to be a problem. Especially in today's environment, everybody's got a camera. So, as instructors, you know how to do the pistol whipping, you may have a certain type of special client that you can teach that to. But your general student body, I wouldn't do it.
Going, extending on that, if I had to guess, a lot of those techniques were based off of revolvers, not a modern semi-auto. Yes?
Yes.
And so there's, the mechanics are slightly gonna be problematic with that. Do you agree?
I do. You know, being a firearms instructor as well, and working as a security officer. And when I started with the PD back in 1977, we were all carrying revolvers. Then they went to semi-autos, and they work differently. So when I teach firearm defenses, gun defenses in a partner system in depth, I talk about how you have to be able to distinguish between a revolver and a semi-auto. And if you're not very familiar with guns, like, okay, just get the gun out of your face. Don't worry about that later, but there is functionality issues that go along with it. But trying to take the gun away and then pistol whip them with it, it's like, man, there's so many different types of firearm variations, now you don't know what's gonna set it off. And I had a friend that was a instructor for Chicago police department said, well, if it goes off, you send the flowers to the person down the street. It's like, whoa. No, it's not like that. Other questions?
I have a question, Mr. Wedlake. There are themes in forums. Are there any themes in the belt levels?
Yes. Over there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now it depends on which belt level list you're talking about.
10 yellows, 16 all the way up to third ground, and then it
Well,
goes
that's
to
not the
24.
original list. What a lot of us did is we learned 10 yellow belt techniques, and you need to know that the yellow belt techniques came in later, after everything. Yellow belt was invented as a short self-defense introductory course, because you and your buddy decided to take karate. He went down the street to the Shotokan school, got a yellow belt in 3 months, and here you are in Kempo school, and you're halfway to orange. You haven't got a colored belt yet, so we needed something to compete with them, so they invented this yellow belt program. Which is why some of the techniques are a little odd. If you're an instructor and you've taught the new people coming in, you teach them how to do the pincher, and then, or the grasp of death is what it's called today. And when they get up into the next level and you teach them how to do the grip of death, they go, why didn't you teach me that? That's easier. Okay, because a lot of these were extracts out of stuff from the higher ranks. Where he was taking a concept and said, we need to do this, and we put it down here. So the yellow belt was like, it was okay, but you had those 10 yellows, and you had 32 orange, 32 purple, 32 blue, 32 green, and you had what's called green orange. Okay? There was no written curriculum for second brown, first black, and so on. And then as time went by, they said, you know what, the system is too front-loaded, 32 techniques to get an orange belt, let's chop it down to 24. So they did that. And said, well, we took this last 8 over here, and we moved that up, and then take these over, 6 to 8, we moved that up, and so the theme started to disappear. So the orange belt stuff was based on a beginner not having all that great timing and range, so a lot of it's defenses against grabs. And only 3 techniques had a cross out at the end. Then you got the purple belt, there was more live stuff coming at you, more kick and punch defenses, a couple more weapons, and then you did a single cover on everything. Then you got the blue, and the blue condensed all the movements, so the hand techniques got a little bit faster and a little more circular. And then they had double cover outs. And you went up into green, green was what we call the kicking belt. So you had a lot of kick combos. You had techniques like rotating destruction in there. You had stuff where you're flying around on the 2-man defenses, doing front chicken kicks and back chicken kicks, and so on, because he said by then, you got a real solid base, your hands are pretty good, now you can start picking your feet up and doing all these interesting things that we didn't teach you before. Then you picked up green-orange, which was actually for 3rd-degree brown. It was the 32 orange belt techniques with the extensions, the original extensions. And the intent of that was A, give you different information, different things you can do, different combos, different timing, different natural weapons. Okay? But also for the instructor to have an opportunity to go back and look at the base technique. Let's see what Clutching Feathers looks like. Did you screw it up between orange belt and green belt? And let's fix that. So it was a reinforcement, and then you got promoted to brown. You had a year and a half to get everything polished up. You learned Form 4, you learned the 2-man set, maybe the staff set. Went through a lot of the what ifs and a lot of the formulation, and then you were ready for black. And it took about 4 years. So there were themes along the way. That's roughly how they went. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Too much?
Mr. Wedlake, when they went to the 24, my understanding was when you looked at orange belt, the first 8 was a little bit, yellow wasn't there. The last 8 was kind of a preview of what you're going to start to see in purple. The first 8 in purple was a little bit of a review of orange. You got the base of purple, and then kind of the same thing with the last 8 going into blue. No?
That would have been a middle 1980s version.
Okay.
Okay, because it was originally just take the first 24, take the last 8, chop them off, put them right at the beginning. Then in the mid-80s, they got reshuffled again. So
Okay.
they tried to make it match the web of knowledge, so like grab, push, punch the fence. And it doesn't work like that, it's not a nice, neat package. So that's why when people say, well, I'm looking at the manual or I'm looking at the list, like, well, which list? Which manual from what period of time? And then, needless to say, like, this school teaches it like this and that school teaches it like that, so it's like, it's hard to answer the question. Because you're there with I was there during all these variations. And I saw how the system had changed, then the yellow belt stuff was changed in the middle '80s. So they took out aggressive twins and intellectual departure, and they put in alternating maces, and they put captured twigs in there, and they took out a couple of great techniques that I still teach. But they did it for their own reasons, and a lot of that was because Mr. Parker let Jim Mitchell have that project. And the stuff got rewritten, the manuals got rewritten, and the stuff got resequenced. So it changed, and then it changed again. And when I asked Mr. Parker, I said, well, we got this new yellow belt, you want me to learn all of that, plus these other new sets and everything? He said, you want me to teach them? And he says, you don't need that. Grandmaster, tell me, you don't need that. Okay, because I don't like some of these sets. I just don't like them. I know them. Sometimes I teach them, but I don't like them. I don't believe that you should be subjected to busy work. You got enough things to do. So let's work on some real solid basic stuff that you need instead of going to do stand set 2. Stand set 2 with all the hands. I thought it was called a stance set. They get your hands moving all over the place. The first stance set didn't have any hands to it. You put your hands on your hip and just ran through it. It wasn't even called stance set back then. So
What
that's
else?
just me because I'm getting to be a cranky old man.
What else in your opinion then is busy work?
Say again?
What else in your opinion then is busy work?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, that's a good question. We'll save that for offline.
I had a question, sir. With online, you see a lot of seminars with Mr. Parker, and he talks about, like you're saying, critical thinking. Was his focus, at least for the black belts, more critical thinking, or like application, or trying to see how he would teach, or what he would emphasize?
He wanted you to think, and he would tell you you needed to think. He used to say it all the time, you folks need to think. Yeah.
That's why he wrote this book.
Alley-oop.
And he realized that a lot of people are just sequence seekers. It's like, I need this form, I need this self-defense technique, I call them baseball cards. People want to collect the whole set of baseball cards. And then they trade them with their friends. You got stand set number 2, I'll give you a finger set 2 for a stand set 2. And so now you've got a set. And I look at things like, if I'm gonna do that, what value does it have for me? And if it's got a lot of repetition of something else, it's like, I don't think I need that, because if that other something has that in there, I'll practice that. Instead of having to learn this whole new sequence over here, because we all know, like, sometimes learning a new form or set is like, I don't have time for this. Okay, really, all you need is like 90 days to learn how to punch and kick real hard. That's all you need. The rest of this stuff is like, it's nice to know, it's great to know, but you can get into it, it's like there's just too much stuff. The worst thing you could tell a student when they say, why do I need to learn this, is because you need it for your next belt. That's horrible. Okay, it should be, you need this because it develops this or that, or the other thing over here, and that leads to this and an understanding of that, which is what I tried to do today to get you to connect the dots. So then you start to get the picture. Some people say that Ed Parker treated the system like a jigsaw puzzle. So he poured the pieces out and then he threw the box top away. So you don't know what the picture looks like. That, I don't agree with that at all. He left us a picture. Okay? So the people that say that he threw the box top away don't understand how this fits and what the big picture is. So instructors like Mr. Lelliott, myself, Steve White, John Sepulveda, and so on, as we go out there, we try to give you the big picture and give you these keys to say, This is how these things fit together. I tried to structure today's class so that you have an idea how this stuff fits together with the form, and then with the declaring war on the elbow, and talking about the anomalies, get a little critical thinking in there, get you looking at, oh, okay, I can see where that came from, or why we do that, and so on. Yes.
Another question.
Your question quote is way over.
I'm sorry, we got 4 pages, and if you got more time after, I'd like to sit down and talk to you now. With the finger techniques or the finger movements we're using in 1, 2, 3, 4, how does those relate with our finger set? What we're doing in finger set, you see a lot of that in short 3, you see this in short 3, not so much.
Yeah.
How-
To
how-
answer your question, the basic answer is finger set is to teach you the methods and angles of execution and the proper hand formation.
Okay.
In an isolation, so a student doesn't have to worry about moving their feet around as they do that. And when you get the self-defense techniques and then the forms, you learn the application, which requires you to move your feet
Okay.
and think about all that. So you're taking information from over here with the finger set, and say, oh, now I can use that like this over here. Okay. So that's the correlation there.
Okay.
So when you're standing in a horse doing something, that's designed to say, look, just pay attention to your hands. And the finger set's a nice set because it teaches you, like I said, angles and methods of execution, thrusting, whipping, slicing, breaking, hammering, lifting, hooking, all of that's in there. And the main lesson is form your hands correctly, because fingers can do a lot of damage, but they can also be easily damaged. Because, you see Kimpo people all the time. Folk like that. You're asking for trouble.
And what's your name? And what's your name?
You mentioned there was a few techniques that you still teach that you wish were still part of the syllabus. What, can you name a few of the
Intellectual
ones?
departure, okay, aggressive twins, and, yeah, we do, yeah, spread branch. But they took intellectual departure out and put sword and hammer in, which is just your sword.
Don't you pick that motion up in this technique?
No, they're different.
Yeah.
Circle of Doom is different than intellectual departure. They work on 2 different planes, 2 different stories. Intellectual departure is triggered salute with your feet. Pow. That's a cup cracker.
For those of us that don't know it, can somebody do it? I don't know.
I like it. We teach it. I like it. It's essential.
Intellectual departure.
I don't remember.
Okay, I'm standing there minding my own business, and he's gonna throw a right step and front kick, so when that kick comes in, I turn, and I go to this reverse close kneel, which looks like I'm gonna run away. So as he's landing, I'm gonna boot him with a back kick in the groin. I like to throw a back knuckle in here and then take out his other leg and follow with the back knuckle. So, it's a great tournament technique, it's a good sparring technique, it's a great street technique. Years and years ago, I had a guy, comes, hey, you wanna spar? I was like, yeah, okay, so he comes at me with a front kick, pow, and I broke his cup. Game over, done. Okay, so I'm a fan. I like that technique. So you take that out. When you do deflecting hammer, that teaches you how to go down to the diagonal this way. This one teaches the diagonal this way. So it's outside, inside. The Circle of Doom works on this plane. It's all different stuff. That's why people have problem with Circle of Doom, because they try to do it like intellectual departure and they get their leg caught and they're like, I can't get the guy to go around. It's like you're using the wrong line. And if you think about it, Circle of Doom is thrusting salute turned upside down. Thrusting salute, you start from the top and block on the bottom. This one you start on the bottom and turn it, go all the way to the top. Thrusting salute does a front kick with your back leg. This one does a back kick with your front leg. See what I mean? Thank you.
Is there anything close to aggressive twins?
Aggressive twins?
Yes, is there anything close that's still?
Alternating maces is like that,
Okay.
but, when you do pieces and parts, aggressive twins, which you did a side kick and then step through front kick, and then checking the storm did a front kick and then step through side kick. So it turns it around. Okay, and attacking mace, you block and you close the guy, then you reopen him with the punch so you can hit him with a front kick. Some people use a roundhouse, doesn't make a difference. Aggressive twins was designed for to pick off the left hand instead of the right, close him and open him with your foot. So the side kick to the knee, re-rotate him so you could do a front kick. So it's like, how do I get this guy turned where I can get at the targets? That's why those techniques go together. But you can do that with alternating maces, it's fine. You're welcome.
Well, there's steps all over the place. I mean, if you do something like obscure clause, when you come to the second part of that, that's just alternating maces, isn't it? You find it everywhere.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Anything else?
I got one more, sir. So, I understand that the techniques like maces or fists and the wink is an elbow. What does like panther mean?
Nobody's ever asked me that in 30 years until this week. I had two of you. I don't know if you've been talking to each other, but, in the Chinese systems, you have, these animal, archetypes. So you've got snake techniques, and crane techniques, and tiger techniques, and a panther is faster than a tiger. That's the thinking, because they're not as big as a tiger. So you have certain bodies that are panther bodies, so the deceptive panther is more that speed type technique as opposed to a tiger technique. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, I was told years ago, they said, do you know what kind of animal you are? I said, no. He says, you're a panther. He says, I watch you fight. He says, you're a panther. And it's because I'm not quite big enough to be a tiger at the time, but I was fast. He said, you're a panther. And so as an instructor, you get looking at people with different bodies. He's not a crane body. Okay? Crane bodies are tall, thin people. And you're a crane body. So they work a little bit different than people that get down in the lower stance and rely more on that upper body strength, right? And then you got snakes who use a lot of coiling actions and dragon techniques and all that. And the Chinese instructors would match personalities to body type and then tailor the techniques to that person. So I had a couple of guys in my school that were 6'4", tall, lanky crane types. And the one guy could actually do unfurling crane in sparring. It was crazy. But me, man, I hate that technique. It doesn't fit me. I can teach it, but that's another thing with the system is you say, you know what, you really need this technique done like this, like we talked about last night for the ladies, get rocked. You need a different kind of technique. So the material teaches you how to have these options to get them to be able to apply that. That's the story. And, the funny corollary to that is a lot of the symbology in Chinese martial arts is a snake and a crane. Seen that before? Okay. And what that is, it's another representation of yin and yang. Okay. Yang is usually vertical, earth and sky. And then you have the yin is down and low and horizontal, receiving end. So the crane represents yang, and the snake represents yin. And there's a constant interplay between the two. So the classic battle between the crane and the snake is that the crane goes to peck the snake coils out of the way, it comes back with the counter strike, and the crane deflects with the wing. And so there's no winner, there's no loser, it's just constant back and forth, which is what the yin yang is about. But the story that goes with it is, where do they both come from? They both come from an egg. Birds come out of eggs, snakes come out of eggs. So the methodology comes from the same place, it's how you apply it. And that's what's kind of cool about the philosophy part, that sort of thing. Anything else? Okay.
So what's the first, what's the name of the clinic?
Everybody good?
Sir.
You have fun? You're not smiling. We have books left up there, if anybody hasn't got one of these books, I would advise you to seriously think about getting one. There's a special for the day, $50 each. We'll make you an even better deal when you get to the desk. Also, if anybody we're having burgers at our house, if anybody wants to come round, eat with us, then feel free, just let me know and I'll let Jay know and I'll just for deal. Anything else for you to say?
Yeah, so
I think you should be up here, but she's school, I understand up here.
thank you, again for being here and supporting the event over at the Garo last night and here today. I hadn't been out here since last year, so I said, I really gotta get out and see these guys, so I planned this trip. I stopped at Bob White's school first, and then I came up here. Tomorrow I'll be in Santa Clara. It's always good to be out here and, you know, you open your mind to me. And I don't wanna put any bad information in there, so the things I do are vetted. And I know they work, because you may have to use them to defend yourself at some point in time. So we'll bow out and then we'll do something that I stole from the Blue Angels that I think you might like. Some of the other groups have done it as a kind of a closing sort of thing, so attention stands. That's the worst. Close. Salute. Okay, let's make a circle. Formation test. So what the Blue Angels do at the end of their briefings, they slap the desk and then they fist bump everybody around them. So what we'll do is just ready, and boom. You're out of here.
There you go. Can we get a picture, please?
Can we just get a group picture before everybody just
Group shot. Group shot.
Group shot.